Talks Backyard Birds. Today's program could have been titled a couple, three different things. The basic topic that I planned for is something known as interspecific flocks, but I know most of you wouldn't be familiar with that term, and this is where we're going to get to eventually. But truly, the program is about the smartest bird of them all. Now, we know that birds are smart. Obviously, some birds are smarter than others, and just like with us, they're definitely. And what really defines smart with a bird or within the bird world? So, for us, when we think of smart birds, a lot of us will think about the parrots. Because of of course, their ability to learn and recite vocalizations or words and phrases and things they hear from humans. They live a long time, but then they are a very, very smart group of birds. And the other group that gets a lot of attention because they're very smart, of course, are the ravens and the crows. We know they have the ability to go back and find something they have stored a long time before, which of course you've got to be smart to do that kind of thing. And of course they can actually say words and things like that when they're taught. But if you were to survey birds and ask other birds who are the smartest birds out there, I truly believe you would get the answer chickadees. And this is where we're going now into the topic of interspecific flocks. Chickadees are very smart, very bold, brave little birds. And I always used to make the guarantee that if you've put up a bird feeder for the first time, that a chickadee will be the first bird to find it. And that still holds true a lot of the time. But unfortunately, in urban areas, there's so many house sparrows and things like that. I don't make that promise anymore, but it's pretty close to it because chickadees are always on the lookout for food. They're always willing to zip in and investigate and zip out. That's why other birds follow them around. And that's why I say other birds would vote for the chickadee as the smartest bird out there, because they know if the chickadee finds food, they're likely to find food too. When I was in ornithology class in college, and we would do our ornithology field trips and bird hikes, and we were learning birds in the field. My professor taught me back then that especially in fall and winter, when you're out looking for birds, listen for chickadees, because chickadees will lead you to other birds, because other birds follow them around, again, taking advantage of. And these were known as interspecific flocks, interspecies. That did more than one kind of species there. Now, the tufted titmouse was always a very prevalent member of those. And of course, they're first cousins with the chickadees, very closely related. So they kind of be the co-smart bird in this program. And the other birds will follow them around, because whenever you flock together like that, not only do you get the benefit of, well, if you find food, I'm likely to find food, but you also have more eyes and ears watching out for predators. And so you have that added ability. Okay, I'm feeding. I can reach down and I can pull this seed out, but I've got other birds around me that are going to sound the alarm if there is a predator, a Cooper's hawk or a sharp-shinned hawk or some kind of avian predator, ground predator around. So traveling together, of course, is smart like that. But the main thing you're trying to do is ensure your survival, and that is to find food and water. And those chickadees are really great. And so when we would go out looking for birds, and this is the bird watching tip of this program, like I said, in the fall and the winter, if you're out at your local nature reserve, you're in your backyard, you're wherever you are, walking or hiking, and you hear that chickadee call, pay attention and investigate that. Draw your attention to that direction, because not only are you likely to find a chickadee, black-capped Carolina chickadee, or a tufted titmouse, but you're going to find other birds too that tend to follow them around, like the nuthatches. This is a white-breasted nuthatches. They are very commonly associated with these interspecific flocks that travel together in the fall and winter. And of course they have their niche. They're getting the insects that are trying to overwinter down in the bark, the top parts of the bark, especially since they go head down the tree. But also in the south, the little brown-headed nuthatch was very much a part of these interspecific flocks. Tiny little guys, but they would travel along in these flocks and looking for food. And other birds, now these are feeder birds that we see a lot. So it kind of makes sense that they would associate with the chickadee and the titmice, but there would be other members of that flock that would sometimes surprise you. The eastern bluebirds would be in these flocks. Again, following them around, knowing if they found food, there's usually a good food source for them as well. So the eastern bluebirds would be members of these interspecific flocks. And in the south, also pine warblers. And this is something we don't get to see very often here in the upper Midwest, but the pine warblers in the south would quite often be associated with these feeding flocks as they move through the woods in winter, especially the brown creepers would be part of these interspecific flocks. And of course, they're kind of like the opposite of the nuthatches. They skim the bark and look and probe behind there with that long bill to get what are trying to be overwintering insects. And then usually all the woodpeckers, many of the woodpeckers, downy woodpeckers, hairy woodpeckers, red-bellied woodpeckers, but in winter, the yellow-bellied sapsucker, like this bird here, would be associated with those interspecific flocks. So if you're out there in the field, bird watching this time of year, listen for the chickadee. He's the key. Titmice too, the Peter. But the chickadees are typically we call them the core species of these interspecific flocks. It's good. It helps us to find birds. It helps them survive. Like I said, more eyes on the environment, more beaks and probing for food. And if you find a good food source, other birds can take advantage of it and they all survive. Again, same thing with unfrozen water. If the chickadees find an unfrozen source of unfrozen water, all the birds can take part of that. So they share the responsibility, and they all benefit from it. So the bravest, smartest bird of all, the chickadee, and in our case, the black-capped chickadee. Down south, the Carolina chickadee. Out west, we've done the whole program on those. I'll put a link to that up here by the different chickadee species around the country. It's a great idea for a program. A little bit of bird feeding in there, a little bit of bird watching in there, and survival instinct. So thanks for the idea. Give us a like, give us a share if you like the program. Until next time, let's talk birds.